Hello, welcome my friends. My name is Irvin, also known as 𝚅𝚒𝚛𝚝. Today's video is all about virtual machines. I'm going to explain what the virtual machines are, how they function, how they're set up, and how you can install them to play around with different operating systems for yourself. In this case, we're going to use Microsoft's Hyper-V software that comes with Windows operating system. It doesn't come installed by default, but you can install it as part of Microsoft operating system, and I will show you how to do that. It's pretty simple. However, I believe it only comes with Microsoft Windows 10 Professional and or Enterprise. I don't think it comes with Home, but it will show you how to install it nonetheless. It's pretty simple, but it's also really fun, especially if you want to experiment with different operating systems and like to learn about them. Really cool stuff. Alright guys, if you got 1 second, please click the like button. It only takes 1 second and it really makes a big difference for me, especially if you appreciate this type of content. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Alright, first thing first, here is our computer that we're remoted in that we're going to use for our virtual machines. And we got to install Hyper-V, because in this video we're going to talk about Hyper-V. We're going to install this program which will allow us to run these virtual machines so that way we can play around with them. The way you install Hyper-V in Windows operating system is if you go to your apps and features and then you go here into programs and features. This is the old school of add, remove, or uninstall programs that you will normally see in like older operating systems like Windows 7. And what we are looking for is actually turn Windows features on or off. Remember how I said it's actually part of Windows operating system? This is exactly what I meant. So it's very simple. From here on, you have to make sure that Hyper-V right here is selected like so. And then once you click OK, it's going to download it, install it, and it's going to reboot your computer. The reason it's going to reboot your computer anytime you install a virtual machine software is because it has to use your hardware as an extension in order to work. So for example, things like network adapters, CPU, RAM, a video card memory, and all that type of stuff. So it has to do a quick reboot so that way it knows how to create an extension of those into those virtual machines, because we're making a virtual PC and it has to have some kind of hardware associated with that to work. Okay, once you do that, we're going to open up Hyper-V. This is how it looks like for me right now, but this is how it's going to look like for you the first time you open. This is exactly how it's going to look like. There's not going to be anything installed on it or anything like that. Okay, so what you see here under the Hyper-V manager is name 𝚅𝚒𝚛𝚝1. So what is this 𝚅𝚒𝚛𝚝1? Well, that's my computer. That's my physical computer, and that's the name of my computer that I'm using right now. So you can tell also by where it says here that I am remotely desktop into a 𝚅𝚒𝚛𝚝1 computer. And just to kind of show you one other example here is that in Windows properties and computer properties, you can see that the computer name here is 𝚅𝚒𝚛𝚝1. So what that is, if I click on it, it's my computer. This software is literally using my physical computer, my actual hardware, as an extension to create these virtual machines. So again, once you install Hyper-V, or even for example Oracle VirtualBox, which is also pretty good software, it's going to again reboot your computer because it's going to use your computer as an extension to run these virtual machines. So all these virtual machines are part of your physical machine. It's just they're creating these extensions to use in order to function as if it's its own thing, and it is, virtually speaking, it's its own thing. This is why you can have a server somewhere in a data center. Imagine a rack server. I'm going to put a picture of it right now. This is kind of looks like these servers are just on racks in big data centers somewhere in some building where AC is running really cold to keep him cool. And these servers can have many different virtual machines on them. And that's the whole point of creating a virtual machine, is that, for example, you can have 10 different websites. You can have 10 different web servers, for example, running on a single server. And that's the great thing about virtual machines. If you have enough RAM, if you have enough processing power, you can run as many virtual machines as possible. So instead of just having one computer that's not using all of its resources, now you can have multiple virtual computers on that one computer or a server. So let me just kind of show you here just a brief example of what I kind of mean here. you can see that I have a CPU here, and this CPU has 8 processing threads. It says 8 logical processors right here. And it's an i7, and this is why it has this. This is an older i7, but it's still pretty good processor. But it has 8 logical processors. On these 8 logical, you can potentially run 4 different instances of virtual machines, because you can literally split those into 2 for each. So 2 times 4 is 8. You can have 4 different virtual machines running off of this one single CPU, as long as they're not super intensive. And of course, you got to have enough RAM. And you can see here that I have a total of 16 gigabytes of RAM, and then you can split that RAM amongst those servers. In a realistic scenario, since this is not a server computer, in this case, if I wanted to have two really good virtual machines, I would just run 2 to 3 maybe, because you can see that the system itself is using up quite a bit of RAM just to kind of function. You know what I mean? And that's, but if I added more RAM, I can of course even make that even greater. So that explains the hardware part of it, of how virtual machines are created on actual hardware. So it creates those mini copies of themselves, if you will. They're not as good, but they're good enough to do certain things. Again, I used an example of a web servers, which is very typical to see if you're familiar with the cloud storage and cloud computing. That's all they are. They're all virtual machines running off of different servers and different hardware platforms. But when it comes to setup, is something we're going to talk about right now. All right, so when you initially start this, it's going to be blank here. There'll be no virtual machines, but you can click Create New. So we're going to click Quick Create New. Once this loads up, you can see that it actually offers you some, typical stuff you can install on a virtual machine. This is just the kind of a thing that you can just literally click Create Virtual Machine. It's going to create it, and it's going to be these specific ones. What it's going to do is basically download these ISO images, operating system images, and they're going to install them for you. And that's fine. If you want to try these and you don't want to really install anything else, you can certainly do that. But I wanted to show you that you can actually do it also by using your own image. So we're going to click Local Install Source, and then we're going to specify different things. The first two we're going to install is Windows 10 and then Windows Server 2019. So we're going to just kind of make sure that this is still checked here, where it says this virtual machine will run Windows. Enable Windows Secure Boot. That's fine. You can leave that like that. And then we're going to click Change Installation Source. And now we're going to tell it to go to our desktop, which is where our virtual machines are. You can see right here, we're going to select this one here. So we're going to select that one. So we're going to do Windows 10 real quick, and we're going to click Create Virtual Machine. So what this is doing is just kind of give you an option that says, hey, virtual machine already created, it's already done. But that was really quick. Yeah, sure enough, it created a virtual machine, virtual computer, but we haven't installed anything yet. It just created some basic settings. And we can click connect, and it's going to keep those basic settings for the hard drive, for how much RAM is being used, everything else. But we kind of want to learn more about this. So we're going to click Edit Settings instead of Connect. We're going to click Edit Settings so we can see what's all in there. Can we make any changes? Well, we certainly can. Here it is. This is our hardware, which says hardware. So if we click here on the firmware, it kind of gives you an idea of what is selected for our drive and for our network adapter. And that's kind of main things right now that we're looking at here. We can tell that we already selected the Windows ISO image, and that's fine. It's inserted in virtual DVD drive, and we can see that it created a new virtual machine hard drive, and we'll look at that as well. And it created also a network adapter, which is using a default switch, basically an extension of our network adapter that we're already using. Moving down, if we click on security, we can see that secure boot is enabled, and then we can just kind of leave it here if you're using Microsoft Windows. That's fine. These are just some of the basics we're going to talk about. I don't want to talk about super in detail because this is just video on virtual machines. If we click on memory here, we can see that it specified 2 gigabytes of RAM, which is fine. That's what I would do with 16 gigabytes of RAM. Maybe add a little bit more depending what I'm doing with the virtual machine, but for now, 2 gigabytes is fine. And then we're going to go click on the processors here, and we can see that we have number of virtual processors selected as 4. We can adjust this to whatever we want. We can even do 1 if we really wanted to. But so it installs faster on a computer. We're just going to leave it at 3. I'm going to leave it at 3 so that way I have at least, after I do 2 virtual machines, I'll have 2 processors running just for the base of my machine. So that way I don't use all 8 processing threads. So I'm going to change it to 3. And then let's see here. I'm going to click apply here just in case. You can change the resource percentages, this and that, and that's something advanced you can kind of fiddle with, but I wanted to show you some main stuff. If we click on the hard drive, you can see that it's using a virtual SCSI controller. It really doesn't matter. The virtual hard disk that it's using here, there are different options of virtual hard disk you can create. If we click on edit, we can create our own virtual disk, and it really doesn't matter. I really haven't found that it makes any difference when it comes to performance or not, because it's all virtual anyways. So there might be certain situations where you might want to look into this, but this is not the video about that. And then the other thing we can look at, we can look at the DVD drive. I already said it's the DVD drive, virtual DVD drive that has Windows operating system inserted in it. And then we can look at the network adapter, and it's using a default switch, which you can disable it if you want, but that's pretty much what it is to it. I don't want to talk about anything else because it's going to kind of take away from the point of this video. All right, so this is how your hardware looks like. We're set to install our virtual machine, and that's what we're going to do for our other machines that we create. All right, I'm going to click connect. Where it says here the virtual machine is turned off, we can just click start. So what it's now doing is basically post. It's going to say, hey, do you want to boot? See, I missed it. See, now it's trying to boot over PXE, over the network. But what it was doing here actually was trying to boot from the CD that we've inserted. So where is that? Where can we actually remove that? Because you don't want to keep this in there all the time once you install the computer. Otherwise, it's going to come up all the time. It's actually right here. So what I'm going to do is pause the machine. I clicked pause there. And I'm going to look at the DVD drive here. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to turn it on. And we're going to look at the DVD drive here. And then we can see here that we can eject that Windows ISO. So you want to do that after you install the operating, just like normally you would do. You don't want to boot from it all the time and try to install it. So this is how we did it earlier. We can just simply click insert disk. Now we're going to go back to our desktop. We're going to specify our Windows again. And once we finish installing it, we're going to remove it. We're going to eject it, just like you would on a regular PC. So what I'm going to do here is actually reset the machine, so that way we get a chance to actually hit any key here. I'm going to click reset, and I'm going to hit any key, and here it is. It's going to start our Hyper-V virtual PC and the virtual machine, and here it is. Here's our Windows operating system install. And from here, you can just install operating system, click install. It's just like you would normally do with anytime you install Windows 10. All right, let's go ahead and turn this off and or switch our ISO. We're going to switch to a different ISO. We're going to eject this one, and then we're going to insert different disk, and we're going to select this one, which is the Windows Server 2019. I'm going to reset it, and I'm going to hit any key and see how this one looks a little bit different. It's going to start our Server 2019 operating system install. And then again, you just got to go through the motion, install Windows Server 2019, and then you'll have a virtual PC running. And I already have that installed, and I'll show you how that's running. So this is how I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to select, I'm going to eject this one. I'm going to insert our Linux one. And here's our Linux Mint. I just picked a random one. So I gotta be honest, I tried to install Linux Mint on there, and it didn't work because it's corrupted. My ISO is corrupted. You can see here that it's only 354 megabytes. I don't know why it showed up as completed or downloaded like that, but it's supposed to be around 2 gigabytes. I'm almost done downloading a slightly different version of Mint, so we're going to try that in this situation here. I'm going to move it to desktop. Not that it really matters, but anyways, let's try this again. We're going to do a quick create, And this time we're going to click local installation source as well, and I'm going to uncheck this because it's not Windows. So I'm going to uncheck secure boot. I'm going to change installation source. We're going to go back to our desktop, and we're going to select Linux Mint, which is Mate version rather than Cinnamon. Either way, I just wanted to see, I wanted to show you how you can install this, how you can install whatchamacallit, Linux distribution on this, and just it's really good for learning. All right, let's go quick overview. My main thing to kind of check is to make sure I have at least 2 gigs of RAM, and then processors I'm going to change down back to 3, just to kind of keep it like that. And yeah, everything looks fine. So I'm going to click connect, and just to kind of show you here, this is what I would have done earlier. I'm going to eject this, go back here just like I did with the previous one, insert disk, and then again check or select the Linux version. So now it's going to run just fine. We're going to launch this bad boy, and I'm going to start installing Linux. I'm going to hit enter here. You can see that it's just going to install it as we are just kind of looking at it. And I wanted to show you the running virtual machines. I'm thinking, should I just kind of minimize this, let it do its thing? Okay, let's try this one here. I'm going to run it just to show you a running virtual machine. This is either Windows 10 or Windows Server 2019. Either should work. Connect. And it kind of asks, and let me log into this. If I can remember my password. But you can see it's just Windows operating system. And this is Windows Server 2019. Well, see, you can see this one is actually really responsive, which is good, and goes to show that you can run these type of machines and be pretty useful, pretty fast. You see, whatever I'm clicking on, it's no problem whatsoever. I went full screen on this. Everything is responsive, everything's fine. I don't know, control panel, file explorer. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Works pretty good. And let me see if I can just do open just Active Directory users and computers. There you go. It's snappy. It's working, and you can play around with it. When it comes to Linux stuff, you can just try different versions and see which one you can get going. They're all going to be different. Obviously, some of them don't even have GUI at all. There's no desktop per se, or like a visual desktop, and there'll be a lot of command line action going on. But this is virtual machines in a nutshell for people to kind of get introduced to virtual machines and install their own and play around with. And there you go. I hope you like this video. Please share it with friends. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.